Performing Gaming 420.
Today, Jeb engaged the front-running Donald at a town hall in Englewood, Colorado.
Mr. Trump believes that you can just round people up, and that it's just an easy thing to do because he's a successful guy and he'll just have successful people do it and it'll all work out. Well, the cost of this will be extraordinary. It will disrupt community life. It doesn't embrace American values that I think should be respected. It's not a conservative plan, and it's not practical. It will cost hundreds of billions of dollars, and it's not going to happen either. It's just not possible to do it. How do you know, he's proposed eliminating remittances. So who's going to decide who's, legally remitting money back to their families in other countries? Are we going to have just go door by door and do this? You can't build a wall and solve this. I mean, if you've been to the border, first of all, there is no. I mean, you'd put American citizens on the unless you build it in the middle of the Rio Grande River, which I don't think is feasible. The cost of it is extraordinary. The terrain makes it impossible. It's a great soundbite, but it's not defensible in terms of a practical policy.
All right, so another day of data about Jeb Bush and whether this is an effective way for him to advance his candidacy by taking on Trump. What do you think?
Well, I'm going to get to my caveats in a moment, but let me just say, on paper, I said this yesterday on the show, the notion of making this a mano-a-mano fight with Donald Trump, being feisty, being conservative, or calling himself conservative and Trump liberal, trying to peel away some supporters from Marco Rubio and John Kasich who don't like the fact that those guys are being quiet about Trump. All of that on paper makes a lot of sense. My caveat I will reserve until after you speak.
Look, the Bush campaign is not going to pick every fight with Trump. They took a pass on fighting over Barbara Bush, for instance. But they are going to look to do this to try to help define Jeb Bush. My caveats are, Jeb Bush says there are two things he wants to do in running for the nomination. One, be joyful. That did not look like a joyful man. He's got to learn how to take on Trump and be joyful by his own standards. And the other is, he said he's not going to say things that will hurt chance of winning the general election. And while he didn't necessarily there, obviously on anchor babies and some other issues, he has.
Well, yes, and again, to your first point, Howard Stern, I believe, on the radio, possibly yesterday or today, I can't remember when I heard it, said that he thinks that Jeb Bush speaks Spanish better than he speaks English. And I think there's something to that. He's not only does he not look joyful, he's also just sort of yammering and stammering, and he's not driving even the message he wants to drive against Trump. So on paper it works. The performance is really sorely lacking so far.
Today, again, not in the context of taking on Trump, he talked about Planned Parenthood, seemed to want to get rid of Planned Parenthood. He's making errors in the context of going after Trump.
Jack from ECW has a shoot interview that he did a while ago where he has some comments about you as far as he called you a racist and this and that. Do you have anything to say about that, or have you ever...
Are you now, or have you ever been a member of the racist party? No, New Jack's problems were basically whether he was black, blue, green, orange, or polka dotted. New Jack got to be a star way too quick. Unfortunately, he got to be a star before anybody else even knew he was a star. And New Jack has a lot of opinions about a lot of things, but I think the record speaks for itself in the fact that the guy that made it out of that team that was in Smoky Mountain, New Jack and Mustafa and D'Lo, was D'Lo, because D'Lo actually used that opportunity to be in Smoky Mountain and to work with the guys that he worked with, to learn what he was doing and to learn how to get along and to perfect his craft instead of worrying about how famous he was or how much money he made or who said this or that about him. And so D'Lo's the one that you see now on television, and New Jack's the one you see falling off balcony.
Welcome back to Hannity and Combs. I'm Alan Combs. The mother of professional wrestler Chris Benoit is pointing fingers. She says the Drug Enforcement Administration should have charged her son when his name first surfaced in a steroid investigation. She claims if the feds did their job, the deaths of Benoit, his wife, and their son could have been avoided. The DEA says it's ridiculous for anybody to think we could have known that anything like that could have happened. And with us tonight, professional wrestler Kevin Big Sexy Nash. You don't mind if I call you Kevin, do you?
Yeah, please.
All right. Let's talk about this this issue of steroids and roid rage. Did your understanding that, is this an issue, and have you seen this as a pattern among professional wrestlers?
I've never myself witnessed roid rage. I know that there's steroid use in professional wrestling. There's steroid use in most athletics. I myself have not seen roid rage.
Have you used steroids?
Have I ever used steroids?
Yeah.
Yes, I have.
And did you get mood changes? Did you get any rage take place? Or what was your experience?
No.
No mood changes.
I mean, I gained muscular size. I lost body fat. My body composition changed, but.
Well, you knew Chris and Nancy. You especially knew Nancy. What do you think happened here?
I mean, I really don't want to speculate. I know that from what I've been able to read and find out, and what I've saw from some of of his close friends, that there were some marital problems going on. But you know, I hate to speculate. You know, Chris was very quiet. I didn't have a very close personal relationship with him, but he was. If you're a professional wrestler, you're basically in a fraternity with these guys. So
can we discount the idea that drug use, and they found an enormous amount, and apparently he was getting from his doctor a 10-month supply every few weeks? Can we discount that had anything to do with this?
No, absolutely not. I think you have to wait till the toxicology comes out. The thing that I'm really curious of is, you know, alcohol was found on the scene. They said earlier that alcohol was found on the scene. And I guess that's just not sexy enough for the media. Here's a person that has had a DUI, who has had problems with alcohol before. And if you look in your federal penitentiaries, I'm sure there's a lot more people causing violent crime on alcohol than on steroids.
The focus is because 60 wrestlers under 45 have died in the last 10 years. 104 have died under the age of 50. There's a pattern of steroid and drug use among professional wrestlers. You have the WWE coming out and saying immediately this couldn't have had anything to do with it. It's almost as if they protest too much. You can understand why there's this kind of focus on this.
Oh, absolutely. I think, but at the same time, I mean, I've heard things on some of these newscasts where they said that, you know, that the son had track marks in his arm and he was injecting steroids into the son. Steroids are not taken intravenously. You know, they're taken intramuscularly or underneath and the growth is taken in the fat. So there's so much just misinformation in general out there. I mean, steroids, you know, if abused, are horrible. But when you're in your 40s and 50s, they're starting to find that there are some therapeutic properties as far as when men start to lose their natural testosterone levels. They call it andropause, and they're starting to find out that actually the testosterone, when taken, actually stops the fat cell at the actual stem cell itself. So there are some therapeutic and reasons to look into.
Mr. Nash, this is Karen Hanratty. I think we can all agree that he wasn't taking steroids for any sort of therapeutic purposes. And